Hi, Leah. Thanks for coming on my show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have you here. And we have a lot of stuff to cover, so I really want to just jump right in. So, with your work, you talk a lot about law of attraction and using it in the parenting field, per se. And I would love to know more about how you came to discover law of attraction, because I could have this wrong, but I'm pretty sure that you were pretty mainstream conventional coming into this as I was, or do I have that wrong?
Well, I think from a health and wellness standpoint, I've been a raging hippie for a pretty long time. So I went through, well, my mom was diagnosed with cancer when I was 7. And so throughout most of my childhood, my mom was in and out of cancer treatments and that kind of thing. And so I kind of got a more holistic approach to body health at that time. And then I discovered I had PCOS when I was a young adult, and went through a lot of fertility treatments. And so I started to embrace a little bit more of, I guess some people would call it the woo-woo, but like a little bit more of the acupuncture and the non-Western approaches to body health. But as far as consciousness and awakenedness, I was more traditionally spiritual. I had really explored a more Christian route to satisfying those nudges I was having spiritually for most of my adulthood. I studied art history, so I studied a lot of different religions in doing so, and I traveled to Tibet, and I've been really curious about religious philosophies for a really, really long time, but nothing was really satisfying me. And it just wasn't feeling right. And so it actually was when I was going through my divorce, and all of this perception of control that I had in my life was just getting stripped away. Just everything that I thought was sure and true and firm in my life, I just slowly saw these layers of control being stripped away. And I could either continue to try to like hold on like holy heck to them, or I could let go and just embrace the path that was laying before me. So while I was going through all of that, kind of a funny story, I was actually getting my good girl waxed, and I'm very chitter chattery with just the people that I come in contact with. I end up having really interesting conversations with people. So she recommended that I listen to Hay House Radio. And so I downloaded the app. I started listening to all the speakers on there. And I discovered through that Abraham Hicks and all of her talks about the law of attraction. And this light went off. I was like, yes, this is it, that there's this higher consciousness, that there's this greater energy that we all call different things, but there's just this one common universal energy in our universe, and that's what we're all trying to define and explain through our various Christian or religious experiences. So that's really when, so it was my waxer. Found a lot of traction through my bikini wax.
I love that because, well, the fact of the matter is that you're listening. I mean, it wasn't, I really have a hard time with small talk, and
Oh, me too.
I have, I have sheer fear, selfies and small talk.
Oh,
And, and, like you were listening, and the fact that, you know, this happens for people though. Somebody will recommend something, and if it doesn't ring true, it goes like in one ear and out the other. And then you could be talking to a concierge at a hotel, and they notice something about you and just, oh, I listened to this, or I do this, or I've read this, and you have to have it, or you stumble upon it months later, and that memory comes up, and then it leads you right there.
absolutely. And part of embracing the law of attraction is that I've come to understand that there are no accidents, that
Yeah.
there are no coincidences. There's synchronicities, and there's interactions and engagements we are meant to have to continuously expand that awareness and that consciousness that we have. So there you have it.
I know, right? Just for people who aren't blah, blah, I'm running out of words. Let me circle back. For the people who aren't aware or know much about the law of attraction, would you give us a brief explanation? of a
Sure.
law of attraction?
Yeah. It's both really simple, but also pretty complicated. But the law of attraction is this really beautiful dance between quantum physics, um, your own perspective, and then faith. So in religion, the law of attraction is oftentimes what we know as God, or Allah, or whatever your religious beliefs might be, Buddha. And then in science, the law of attraction is energy. So it's definitely this understanding that there's this invisible force in our life that is impacting us. So the basic premise of the law of attraction is really deeply rooted in quantum physics. And because we're learning so much more about the science of energy, and we're creating tools so that we can measure energy in everything, really, even in our brain now, it's this idea that this universal law of energy, this law of nature, that like energy is attracted to itself. So in essence, if you are a really positive person, you're feeling really good on the inside, you're working on projects that really feel in alignment, which is another law of attraction term, but you're working on projects that just seem to really flow and be so true to the gifts that you have and what you enjoy doing, then because you're vibrating all that positivity, and you're vibrating being in alignment with who you are, who your inner being is, more positivity and more positive experiences are going to be attracted into your life, because that energy you're putting out is attracting more of that energy to come in. The hard part is, alternatively, if you are going through hardships and you're just cycling through that same inner monologue of negative thought, negative internal chatter, if you feel like bad things are just constantly happening to you, and you're really focused on the fact that you must be a magnet for bad stuff, well, it's because you are, because you're vibrating that negative energy, and you're not grasping on to the positivity to really focus on. Even in those darkest times, you can usually find even littlest things to really focus the good on. It's going to draw more negativity into your life because of that law of attraction.
What just because it sounds so much like manifestation, do you have an idea or explanation, do you think, on that?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the law of attraction is a practice, and when you are practicing it in its ideal form, the outcome is manifestation.
Ah,
So,
okay.
I would hate to use the word product, but just to simplify it, manifestation is the outcome or the product of practicing the law of attraction. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. So when people use vision boards, for instance, um, how would that work with the law of attraction?
That's exactly it. Well, I can also tell you, when I explain vision boards here, exactly why they don't work also.
Ooh,
So, because some people, they swear by vision boards, and other people are like, meh, didn't really work out for me.
right.
But when you create your vision board, you're either going to use images that are really true to yourself, or you're going to use images that are ideals that you think you want but aren't actually really true to who you are. So for example, what would be a good example of that? So if you're using a vision board, um, and that you're really wanting to attract a lot of money, and this perception of perfection, and so you're putting up all these pictures of like the perfect house and the perfect family and the perfect pets and the perfect physique, but you don't believe that you can actually really achieve those things, that they feel too far away and unattainable, then you're going to create some pushback from the universe, because under the surface, all of this internal work that you haven't done to heal your own dialogues and your own ideas and your own consciousness are going to get in your way. So when people do vision boards, when they are most effective with them, it's because they're putting achievable goals on there. And you might feel like that might defeat the purpose, because if they're achievable, is it really manifesting? But it is, because you are removing that idea that it's too big. It's too big of a dream. It's too important. It's just too far out of my reach. And a little bit closer to that bigger dream that you want, because you're giving yourself really clear steps. The law of attraction is all about being super specific with what you want and how you think you can get there. Even if that vision changes, it's important to have like a bullseye. Does that explain
Interesting.
it, or do you
Yeah, no,
mean a little
no,
bit
it
more?
makes no, it makes
Yeah.
complete and total sense. I mean, I think so often the way the world is working is that they think that baby steps aren't a thing. Um, and I guess you're just starting to level your vibration to the correct spot.
Yes. And I think too, you bring up a really good point with the baby steps, because we are in a society, in a culture where there's a lot of instant gratification. I mean, you go on Amazon Prime and you can have things same day or in 2 days, and you go on your internet-based television, you can download any movie that ever existed in the world.
Right.
And everything that you want, you have credit cards, so you don't even need to save up your money to purchase things. You can just put it on credit and have it now. So we're so used to this, I can have it now, I can get it whenever I want. And we've lost touch with those natural organic cycles of building up momentum, building up or that time that sometimes naturally things take time, like seeds growing out of the soil. Like, we understand when you put that seed in the soil, there's all this work that's happening in the dark under the surface, right? But we just trust and we know that that seed is going to come up eventually, just because that's the natural cycle of nature. Well, in our culture, we've gotten so removed from those kinds of understandings. We just expect everything to happen at the snap of our fingers. So it can be really hard to understand the importance and the beauty in those baby steps, and just taking that intentional movement forward, and just trusting that even though that first step isn't going to get you to your final destination, that eventually it will.
Well, and I always just as of recently, in the last few years, realized how important baby steps were because I emotionally wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for the next step. Um, I like even saying, let's go into the podcast. If I had decided to do that, say 3 years earlier, I wasn't emotionally ready to answer those questions. I hadn't done enough research for myself. I didn't have confidence in myself to be that way. Um, if I had gotten bombarded by questions or didn't have hadn't solidified with myself who I was, that could have created a whole other turmoil. So the slowdown that we'll say the universe does is so beneficial. Like, it has taught me so much about my own reactivity and just those things that I really could put myself in a predicament later if I hadn't done the baby steps on this purpose journey. Other journeys that weren't my purpose, I feel like I sped through, and then I did get burned. And
Sure.
you know,
And something that I always talk about too is, I think that's one of the reasons why you're pregnant for almost 10 months. Because I think if, like, all of a sudden you just grew an immediate baby and somebody plopped a brand new baby in your arms when you had no idea a baby was coming, you don't have that time to mentally prepare for, how is this going to impact my life, and what kind of parent am I going to be? And so I think is the same, like your podcast, it's like your baby, it had to grow, it had to become into your awareness, you had to kind of understand what this podcast would be for you, and just appreciating those baby steps, and just that natural cycle of the growth that it requires within yourself to get there too. Yeah.
yeah. Um, I would like to know how you would think that, like, we misuse the law of attraction. No, we've kind of talked about it with the vision board, but like, how maybe some like examples that maybe you have in your own life where you've twisted it or confused it and used it. You
Well, I
thought you were
think
using it to push yourself forward, and it stopped you.
sure. Well, I think we touched on little bits and pieces of it, but I think the number one way that people misuse, and I'm using air quotes, use the law of attraction, is that they expect it to be like a genie in a bottle or a magic wand, where you can just say, okay, I want this, and then boom, it's just going to appear in your experience and in your perspective. But it's not how it works at all. There's so many working pieces to the law of
Mm-hmm.
attraction, and so at the very simplest, it's vibrate positive energy, and that positive energy will come into you. But we're human beings. We've had so many experiences that have altered our perspective from the time that we were born to now. Some people even believe that we have all of these experiences from previous lifetimes that really impact the life that we're living here. So regardless of which you believe, from the time birth to the time that you're an adult, which is when most people discover the law of attraction, you've had a lifetime of experiences that have impacted all of the subconscious thinking that you may not even be aware that you have. So one of the most important pieces of the law of attraction is recognizing that it's a practice, that you can't just wave your magic wand in the air, and really realize that you have to do inner work to really clear the path for the law of attraction to work. We did already talk about respecting timing and momentum. So that idea that cycles of nature and the law of attraction is a natural energy. It's a natural element of our universe. So respecting that the cycles of nature take time, that they come in cycles, they come in patterns, but with patience and time that they do happen. And then respecting that momentum, where sometimes you have to build a lot of energy up behind something before you can, an example is pushing the boulder up the hill. You have to do all that work of pushing the boulder up the hill before you get to the top, and then that natural momentum will allow it to just roll down the other side. So respecting those natural laws is a really big piece of practicing the law of attraction properly. And I think we really miss that, as we were saying earlier, in our really instant gratification culture. There is sometimes quantum action, which I think gets in people's way of when they practice the law of attraction. So in that, it means you may see somebody who it appears as if they didn't have to work very hard to have their manifestation occur or to reach their goals. It may seem like they just put out into the universe that they wanted something to happen, and then boom, it just kind of happened. And that's possible. It's entirely possible to have like those instant manifestations. But if you're comparing your journey and your progress to someone else's, not only are you going to see the lack in your life that's going to make you further away from what you want to manifest,
Yeah.
but it's going to make you start to doubt. It's going to make you start to doubt that the law of attraction can work as well. So appreciating that some people may have quantum manifestations, you could have them too, but it's not always going to happen for everybody. So that's something else that gets in our way, is when we start to look around and say, oh, look what all these other people are getting. Why am I not getting that? And then something that we touched on already too is that you have to release control in your life. So thinking that you can use the law of attraction like a tool and control what you put into the law of attraction bucket and then what you take out of it is really going to impact how you manifest daily. And I think in our tech life, we have so many tools that we put in and we take out, and we use the computers and we use the cell phones and we use these apps. So it's really easy to think of the law of attraction as a tool, but it's really, though you can be non-spiritual and still practice the law of attraction, it is very much a spiritual practice where you have to put in that energy every single day. And then I think I already talked about it earlier when we were speaking, but the control that I thought that I had over my kids as I was going through my divorce. Did I touch on that yet? Or was that when I was practicing?
No, we haven't really got to kids at all yet.
Okay, perfect. So we'll talk about that now. So releasing control was a huge piece of what I went through in my divorce. I had been a stay-at-home mom for 10 years. Because of my own experience of my mom being sick, I was going to make sure that my kids only ate organic food, that they only used natural products, that they only had Waldorf education and no screens. There was all of these control factors I was putting into their life to make sure that they were protected and had the best possible upbringing. When I went through my divorce, my kids were away from me 50% of the time for the first time in their lives, which was absolutely devastating for me. And as part of that, I went through this really painful experience of letting go of control of my kids, which when your kids are like 3 and 6, it's really, really tough. But what I learned was that by trying to protect them from all of these things that I thought were going to be a detriment to them, I actually learned that they were learning really incredible lessons that the universe was just providing organically. And and by really guiding them through the struggles instead of trying to control the struggles and control what information was coming in and out of them, what kind of experiences were coming in and out of their perception, by instead guiding them through the struggles, I realized I was giving them lessons every single day that were eventually going to be really impactful lessons in adulthood. And it's just so much easier to learn these kinds of things when you're a kid, when the effects of making bad decisions are so much less important. And so that was a really big piece of realizing that I was using the law of attraction incorrectly, because even once I started practicing the law of attraction, I was still trying to control what was happening to my kids. And so taking the lessons from the law of attraction and applying it specifically to my parenting really shifted how I was using the law of attraction as well.
And I see it was so different for me. Yes, the control thing, having to lose control big time. But like my kids were so from the get-go, so there will be no controlling. And it's so interesting because I came from an uber controlling, and I mean this in a nice way. Like my mom's great. She's super organized and always the best intentions. And then my dad's side's like a lot of hierarchical stuff, but taking it to the extreme. So when my own kids came, they were having none of it. And then the bottom fell out in my life with everything going on with my son. And I had to sit back and watch. It's white knuckle in the beginning. What? It's so white knuckle. And then when you start noticing little signs, like you begin to trust and you begin to open and make that space for the law of attraction. Even though that was something that happened for me, I wasn't aware of law of attraction or manifestation at that point. But so much more space, and that it was okay, and that I could sit there and be of support. But I had to relinquish my expectations of so many things. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I think as a parent, there's nothing harder until you've gained that higher consciousness, that bigger perspective. There's nothing harder than watching your children suffer. It's devastating when you're experiencing it for the first time. It's tough.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you, and I'm trying to even really think if I've even explained it to my kids, but how have you explained and used the law of attraction with your own children?
So it's funny when you brought this question up, because I actually just did a video with my daughter where I just kind of realized that I don't actually use law of attraction terms with my kids. I've never told them, oh, we practice the law of attraction and it is X, Y, and Z. So I sat with her and I interviewed her, and I used a lot of these kind of higher consciousness law of attraction kind of terms with her and asked her what she thought they meant. And it was really interesting how she didn't really know any of the terms that I was using, but she still had a general idea of these lessons and morals and understandings that I was bringing into their lives on a regular basis. So there was some that's like, you're crazy, mom. I don't even know what that means, mom. But then there was also, she was definitely getting the lessons along the way, even though I wasn't really specifically talking about the law of attraction with her. So I think that we've touched on a little bit here as we've been talking, but I think the number one way that I guide my children to practice the law of attraction is that I'm, like I just said, guiding them. I'm not their boss. I'm not in charge of their life. It's my job to guide them, to help keep them safe, of course. I mean, I'm not gonna, if they want to run into oncoming traffic, I'm not gonna let them do that.
Yeah.
But just that recognition that they are not under my control. They are not an extension of me. It's just my job to guide them. And then I think the number one way that I show my kids, and that I'm always teaching parents to show their kids, the number one skill that you can give your kids is recognizing their emotions, understanding, I feel bad right now, or I feel good right now. And then also recognizing that all emotions are okay. It's just what we do physically with them that we get in trouble, right? But it's okay to feel bad. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel angry. It's very okay to feel good. But then I also take the time to tell my kids, because they're still looking to me for cues, even though I want them to be their own independent people. So when they're angry, it's saying, I sense that you're angry. That's okay. It doesn't change that I love you and how I feel about you. I'm here if you need help working through this feeling. And then, of course, when a child is really angry and really worked up, they don't want to talk about it. They just
No.
maybe like rather hit a pillow or chuck a toy across the room. But they still hear you. They still have heard what you've said. And 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 your and in retrospect, you can go back and say, wow, you were feeling really angry, and you can talk about how it's okay that you felt angry. That's your inner guidance. That's your inner truth telling you that something didn't feel right. And then you can kind of help them unwrap that package of hurt and figure out maybe where that feeling was coming from. Now, at first, especially when your kids are really little, you have to use really simple terms. You're not going to have really in-depth conversations with them. But as you start to have this practice of like gently unwrapping these little tight balls of emotions that they can have, they begin to understand that there's messages that their inner guidance and their inner truth is always teaching them through these feelings that they're having, whether it's something that they did that didn't feel good or something that somebody else did that didn't feel good. You have the opportunity through these really hard times to teach them why they're feeling the way that they do. And it's such an important part to recognize your feelings to be able to manifest, because of course, if you feel good, you're going to be more easily able to manifest things into your experience. I think another really big part of explaining the law of attraction to my kids is not only helping them unwrap their little stress knots of emotions, but also modeling that you're the master of your emotions. Now, am I the master of my emotions all the time? Oh, heck no. In fact, my kids know, like I tell them like, mom needs a timeout, and I will go into my room and I'll do like my EFT tapping, or I'll do my heart-centered breathing. But they know that by taking that time, saying, okay, I've taken just about as much as I can take, and now I'm going to take a time out because I'm the master of my emotions, and I know that's what I need right now to get back on track. They've learned, just leave me alone so I can breathe, because the woman that's going to come back out of my room after I've gotten my 1 minute of tapping or breathing is going to be so much more able to be the master of my emotions and to model to them that having their feelings are okay. So that's been another really big piece of showing my kids the law of attraction. I mean, it's all about these feelings, because our feelings are our energy. It's everything. Another big piece is still talking about those emotions, that you are responsible for your emotions. Nobody else is responsible for how you feel. You're not responsible for how anyone else feels. So in addition to being the master of your feelings, also not blaming other people for how you feel, but also recognizing if you've picked up some feelings or energy from other people. And again, unwrapping those packages of where did this feeling come from? Is it my own? All of that kind of stuff. And then, like I've touched on a little bit, emotions are the measure of your inner guidance, which is why I put so much emphasis on my kids with their feelings, because when you are beginning to understand your intuition and your understanding of your inner truth, the first place that you're going to feel that is your emotions. And oftentimes with kids, they're feeling that in their stomach. So understanding that if you have a bad feeling, you're probably going to also feel it physically somewhere in your body. So it might be your chest. Oftentimes for kids, it's their stomach. Almost across the board, almost every kid I know, when they're upset, they get a tummy ache. And so I've taught my kids that when they get like those tickles or those aches and pains, that listening and saying, oh, I feel bad, and now I have this physical symptom, and it helps them begin to understand that their body is giving them tips and tools and signs and signals to recognize how they feel, and to recognize if something is right for them or not, and to recognize if it's good or bad, and as far as it is in their inner guidance or their intuition. So I don't know if that explains the law of attraction as a whole, but that definitely explains the number one most important thing you can do in teaching your kids about the law of attraction. I have actually a story about Santa with my oldest daughter. I don't know if you have parents with young kids that listen, but I can talk about Santa, but I would tell everybody to put like earmuffs on their littles.
No, as long as you give the heads up, I'm fine.
All right. So I'm going to talk about Santa. So make sure that if there's little ones, they're not listening. Normally it's like, oh, I'm going to use some language. No, we're going to talk about Santa. So my oldest daughter a couple years ago became at that age appropriate time where she started to really question Santa Claus. So she was asking a lot of questions about the validity of Santa Claus, and she was asking a lot of questions about why all the facts weren't really lining up. And one Christmas went by and I just kind of kept the charade up. But then the second Christmas came by, and even all the holidays in between, there's a lot of questions about the Easter Bunny. And it really got to the point where I felt like I was lying to my kid. It was no longer like that playful, innocent idea of this imaginary person that comes into your life and gives you gifts. I felt like I was lying to my daughter. So we sat down and we had this really interesting talk about how she was asking questions and she was collecting all of this data to try to understand and to prove what she was feeling was right or not. But that at the end of the day, what she felt was that feeling in her stomach and that little bit of feeling in her chest that I'm asking all these questions, but nothing's really lining up. None of this information is really telling me that my questions are validated or not. And so in sharing with her about Santa and the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy, oh my gosh, it was so hard for me. But in sharing her all of those things, I'm now able to use this example now regularly where she will tell me struggles that she's having with other people in her life and whether she doesn't know if they should be trusted or if the information is true. And I can say, well, is that the same feeling that you had when you were questioning Santa Claus? Because that was your intuition and your intuition was right. You were right about those feelings that you were having. And so it's become this really incredible opportunity to share with her that your inner guidance is always at work in your life. It's always letting you know what feels good and what feels bad. And that same good feeling is going to help open your path, lead you to the opportunities that are ultimately going to help you manifest the life that you want, where you feel very satisfied and very content.
Which, and I'm sure also, it all plays out differently for each kid too. And also too, I noticed when I started doing this work, the feelings that I feel now going to a social circle have, I feel like I'm not even there sometimes because I'm like more trying to analyze my like what energy is coming in and out, just
Mm-hmm.
as not because I'm trying to check out, because I'm like in the beginning stages, so it's like me teaching myself. And so people start telling you things and you're like, you can feel the energy, whether that resonates or not, or resonates with them. It may very well feel very false to you, but may feel very true to them. So
Absolutely. And I think that goes back to also what's your emotional responsibility, right?
yeah.
Um, and I think sometimes people are going through so much, and sometimes we can pick up, in social media right now, everybody's putting their most picture perfect moments up online. But under the radar, everything that we are experiencing is not perfect, even the people with the perfect pictures.
Yeah.
We're all going through struggles that people don't know about. We all have pasts that no one knows about. We all have hurts. We all have these inner dialogues that nobody will ever tap into. So sometimes it's hard too when you're really sensitive to those energies or you're picking up those energies. It's like, how much are you picking up of this past that they're still dealing with, or this current circumstance that is under the surface that they're not sharing, and how much of it is your intuition saying, "Whoa, steer clear of this person." It's an interesting energetic dance.
Yeah. I have a question for you that just came into my mind. When I had phrased it for you in a different way, but with the law of attraction, right? If you are perceiving your child in a certain light, do you think that you would possibly be drawing that personality trait or whatnot from that child? Do you have
Um,
an example, or did that make
I
sense?
think um, that it's a tricky question
Yeah.
because I've talked about how your child is your own person, but when they're really young, and actually in Indian culture, I believe it is, they believe that your child shares your aura with you for the first year as a mother. So your child energetically is relying really heavily on you for that very first year. So interestingly, the more that I've learned about the law of attraction and then mirroring neurons, which we can definitely talk about, the more you begin to realize that everyone in your life, and most especially your children, since you were so intimately connected to them, is actually mirroring you, which can be a really tough pill to swallow as a parent, to think that that the stuff that your children are going through are somehow what they're emoting is actually coming from you. And I know that was really hard for me too, because I was still blaming outside sources for how my children were behaving. But what I came to realize was that because I was so ungrounded and I was so concerned for their well-being and I was so worried about all the things in their life that I couldn't control, that I was actually creating an energy of them feeling ungrounded and them feeling worried and them feeling like there was no control. So they were, in fact, in their behaviors mirroring a lot of what I was feeling on the inside. So that's one way that we can't manifest for our kids, but we can absolutely be modeling the neurons that our children are mirroring, and in fact see our own junk that we're not, for lack of better scientific terms, modeling our own junk that we may not even know that we have subconsciously occurring within us, that they can very much be modeling that and mirroring that right back to us. They are our mirrors. Everything in the universe is our mirror.
Which is actually a really great thing. If you come to really take that piece and really think about it and you use it. Because I know that tool, just even thinking of it that way, even my children, just going like my child is my mirror, it really slows me down and stops me. And
Absolutely.
yeah, it's been a
And
huge tool.
absolutely. And this is a big reason why I teach a lot of parents. It's like in that 5 minutes before you pick your kids up from school, or before you get out of the car from being at work all day and you interact with your kids, it's like, check in with yourself. It's like, what energy are you bringing in from your day or whatever happened in those moments right before you picked up your kids? Because if you walk in saying, I've had the most craptastic day and I just need tonight to be cool, I guarantee you your kids are going to be the worst behaved that they've been in months, because you've brought in that energy of feeling like the day was overwhelming, it was stressful, it was disappointing, whatever feelings that you may be having from your day, you didn't clear that out. You're still vibrating that energy from the day, and your kids are going to mirror that right back to you.
Yeah, I did that one yesterday. That
Yeah.
was me
Yeah. Where I am not innocent of anything that I'm talking about.
We're still works in progress.
Absolutely.
Now talking about helping parents, you have a membership program and workshops that help parents create abundance in their lives with their kids. Can you tell me more about that?
Sure. So I've been on such a journey in my life with my mom's illness, with my PCOS, with my infertility. And so I kind of told you at the beginning that I've kind of been a raging hippie for quite a long time. But over the course of all these struggles in my life, I've learned that Western and non-Western philosophies and medical modalities can actually work really well together, as well as separate, of course, but they really support each other beautifully. And there's so many incredible natural tools that you can use on your own, either for your kids or to heal a lot of the stuff that's been going on within yourself. And so what I really wanted to create with the membership was a platform where I could bring in all these incredible mentors and healers to talk about what they do, what their gifts are, what they teach people, what they do to heal others, and allow them the opportunity to teach parents these skills and modalities as well, so that parents could bring them into their parenting arsenal, recognizing that not any one healing modality may be right for everybody, or one entire healing modality may not heal all of your problems, but recognizing that there's so many amazing tools out there in our world for you to make the best of your parenting experience and feel like you're really supported, and that there's a abundance of tools to help you along your way. So I created the workshop where I bring in an expert in their field each month, and we do a 30 to 45 minute workshop that's live, and then it gets recorded, because how many of us are oftentimes able to watch something live when we're busy parents?
Yep.
Not me. So they're also recorded so parents can watch them as they like. There's at least one workshop a month with an expert. And then oftentimes I'm also doing an additional workshop where I'm teaching about, you know, the fact that our relationship with money is about forgiveness of other people, about reducing anxiety and teaching people things like EFT tapping and meditation. And there's just so many tools. So the membership is about bringing these tools to parents every single month, kind of like a buffet. They can pick and choose what works for them. But the important part is that they're learning about all these new modalities they may have not known before. So it's a monthly membership. And so I bring people in for that. And then, you know, a big piece of what I do too is coaching about the law of attraction. So I also offer group coaching through the membership, which is really great because I bring in cognitive behavioral therapy. I bring in neuro-linguistic programming, as well as the more spiritual side of and the energetic side of the law of attraction. And it's just a really vulnerable, authentic space, which I think we all need. We're pretty open about talking about where our struggles are, and just knowing that we're all there to help heal each other and co-create, another law of attraction term, co-create a really positive space where we can all benefit from the vibrations of one another and support one another. So that's just kind of the membership in a nutshell.
Oh, that's great. You're kind of in your own sense doing, you're being a resource hub is what, like, even this is what this podcast is to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because also too, now having done this work, you realize that, like, I may need a piece from here and a piece from there. And I don't necessarily need that piece because that doesn't work for us. But this, I need a huge piece, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. We come from different lives. We have different genetics. We have different past lives, if you believe it. And all of these things,
Yeah.
and it's not everybody
And
wants this works for everybody, and it doesn't.
totally. And I think it goes the same for, you know, there's so many parenting books out there. And what I learned through reading all of the parenting books when my kids were little, because, you know, I was going to control their outcome. What I learned was there wasn't one book that was fitting the bill. There was all these little pieces from all these different books I read. And there really is, we are all born with our own unique combination of gifts and skills and traits. And so if we are also uniquely different, then why would there be one parenting book or one type of education or one type of healing modality that is just going to work for us? It just, it doesn't make sense.
No.
So yes, picking and choosing what you need and knowing that if it feels good with that intuition that you're tapping into, then it's probably the right choice.
Yeah, it's essential. So where can my listeners find you and your work?
So I'm kind of all over. If you guys use the @ symbol on most of the platforms, I'm The Abundant Parent. Everywhere except for Twitter. Twitter, I'm just Abundant Parent. But you can also find me at theabundantparent.com. If you're interested in the membership, you can click on the tab that says membership, and you can sign up there. I'm also on YouTube. I post a new Law of Attraction video for parents at least once a week, as well as extra videos from the experts that I have on every month. So it's a great resource for really exploring a lot of these different modalities and understandings if you're just coming into this for the very first time, or if you're a well-seasoned parent who's already explored a lot of this, you may find some new things that help expand your awareness and bring in some new tools for you.
Great. Well, thank you so much for talking to me and getting together.
Thanks so much for having me. I was so excited when you reached out, even though I totally lost your email initially. I was so excited that I posted on the stories and you were like, that was me. I was like, yes.
And I'm not a stories watcher. Like, you know how there's people who are like stories watchers or not, or they do the feed, and totally. I'm not a stories watcher. So there you go.
It was meant to be.
It was meant to be. Well, I hope to see more of you, and I hope your work spreads.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yours as well.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.